Dark, starring John and Danny. So annoying. Amazing. Holy cow. Welcome. I'm assuming I'm on. Producer Val said he would count us in. I'm assuming that count was in the milliseconds here. Hey, welcome to Grim After Dark. This is the Frontline Gaming Network's weekly interview show where we hit the high points of the last week in the Warhammer community, talk to the best players and content creators from around the world about the one thing we all love, Warhammer. This week we welcome Skarri, a permanent on-call guest for the Frontline Gaming Network and his own actual Shoutcaster as well, to talk about his journey in 40k, how he became a faction expert, as well as his thoughts on the state of the game today. My co-host needs some introduction, as usual. He messaged me across 2-day spans to let me know that he's proud of me for picking a weird list. He misses hanging out, and I'm genuinely the worst person he's ever met. He's the master of the 2 positives to a negative coaching method. Danny McDivett, how are you doing this week? Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And as I'm going to fix in a little minute here, my headphones are really quiet. First off, Danny, Australia, famously expensive for Warhammer 40,000. However, PC Gamer let us know this week just how expensive they are with this article. Ignore the $300 Primaris Marine. Check out this guy here. What's your take, Danny, on this pewter powerhouse being worth roughly the equivalent of 3 boxes of intercessors? This is an original plastic metal Thunderhawk, I'm sorry. Strictly limited to a box of 1,000, special box made in the 90s here. A store in Australia bought one, assembled and pinned for $35,000, or roughly the cost of 3 boxes of intercessors. Danny, what is your take on this? As that reassuring chuckle comes back to me. It's good to hear you.
So amazing. I'm really glad that they could afford to take the hit of 3 boxes of intercessors, as normally that's a down payment on a mortgage for a house.
Yeah, sure. A lot of the times you have to sell that Incurser squad for you to be able to pay the rent for the store for the month. So it's really great that they were able to put it towards that there. And I think the crazy thing about that article is that they're buying 2 more Thunderhawks. And God, I hope it's the resin Thunderhawks that are only $27,000 and not kind of the $35,000 one. Danny, more things are coming too. More new things, as is GW's release schedule is will to do. They've now served.
John, are you familiar with the concept of a release?
Please, okay.
Normally, I just wanted to explain it to you real quick here. So normally,
not for me, because obviously I know. But for people who might not be aware, what is a release?
All right, John. So release is when something new comes out from a particular entity. So it doesn't matter if it's going to be something new always, whether it's release, a press release, or in this case, a model release or a toy release, I think is what we're going to talk about next. Is that correct?
It is not. But
okay. Sorry.
T-shirt idea.
I was excited. Yeah.
T-shirt idea. We're just going to have a shirt for you that just says particular entity.
Cool.
People can ask you about your releases. Now, GW served 1 million customers on their web store. They haven't served any Dread Knights in a while, as I can attest to, but they are giving away this free model. Whatever you spend, roughly $400,000 in whatever your local denomination is. He is modeled after the sergeant from the preview trailer for Warhammer 40k 9th edition. What is your take on Sergeant whatever his name is?
It's Cassius, I think, actually, John.
Isn't that the chaplain? They're all the same.
It can be the same, can it?
Yeah.
Let's not get crazy here.
No.
It's just from earlier in his career when he was a Primaris Marine before he went back to being a firstborn. I'm pretty sure it's some kind of weird Time Lord plot that they're doing as a crossover with Doctor Who. Anyway, so they if you spend 150 pounds, you get him for free, right? So he'd be like what, $225 or something like that.
$240 US.
Okay, $240. So, naturally the US premium that we're paying there a little bit. He's a cool model. He's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. it's if they're going to release these kind of special models for these special events, I'm kind of happy that they are releasing ones without kind of special rules or great things, and it's just like a regular squad dude. That makes me a little bit happier than kind of this like, hey, look at this super special guy who comes out with these amazing rules. Spend $300, please. The internet did, however, ruin it by adding a meme that's becoming more stale than this show on a weekly basis. The crotch rubbing, sword rubbing servitors all over that, with Scepter of Heroes saying GW trying to fight back the memes. You don't have to fight memes. They just instantly become terrible on their own after a week and a half.
Overused.
Yeah, that's why there's no Black Templar bits in this episode. I'm sorry, guys. It needed to breathe a little bit. But hey, yet another license, yet another action figure.
Oh, yeah.
Space Marines are coming back. Games Workshop has commissioned Joy Toy to create these amazing large-scale incursors and a full squad. Danny, what's your take on the Joy Toy incursors?
So I'm pretty excited for these to come out. I think they've got high detail, although they are like pretty. I think they're like not very big. Like I think they're like 12 centimeters tall or something like that. I don't know. I guess I have no idea what the conversion of that is.
What's that in freedom inches? Chat.
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah. Just tell us how dumb we are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say the company name is interesting though.
Yeah, Joy Toy.
I'm excited about some of their other products that are going to be coming out.
Yeah, like, Daddy, I believe you have a sneak peek.
Oh yeah, please. So we've got the to scale double-handed power sword version here that you can see in either red or blue. So you can pick your color, whether it's a chaos power sword or a or an imperial one. Pretty solid there. They look like they're very durable.
I was gonna say, but never a Blood Angel power sword, because we're above that joke. We're very much above that.
No.
I have to imagine there's someone in the licensing department at GW who's like, guys, I made this deal with Joy Toy. You guys are going to be a little upset, but I think it's a market we can corner. And then when they get the proof of concepts and like, oh, it's just an action figure company.
Oh. Man.
It makes me really sad.
Oh, you broke me, John. The Blood Angel joke was so good. God,
I'm allowed one.
Thank you so much.
And I wasted it on that one. That's all I got to do. I'm not even going to go through the rest of the Space Marine chapters because then it gets like real risky. And then chat, is there a Black Templars one? No, because that would be something fun, which Black Templars are not allowed to be fun in any way.
No, John, I heard about that one. It's kind of a sedentary. It's more of a power plug, if you will.
It has a chain to attach it to your wrist so you don't lose it.
So you don't lose it. It doesn't go, get away from you, so to speak.
Perfect. So moving on past the Joy Toys, which I'm sure we'll revisit.
Oh my God.
When you leave.
Hey, all right. One more thing, John, before we get
let's
too much further here. I'd just like to point out, you made this, you posted this joke in like our chat, like earlier this week, at least 3 days ago. We're not just stealing jokes from Tabletop Inquirer, guys. Like, we can come up with our own material, okay? I
have timestamps that show me posting here. I will say,
we'll do it. We're not afraid.
It does follow my like I have this string theory board in my room, which is just Val, producer Val, and network overlord Val is actually Tabletop Inquirer, and this just proves it because this is where the jokes are. And then, Blood Angels
for chat, just so everyone in the audio podcast knows. Those were pictures of blurred out. Let's just make sure that everybody just understands the joke.
And as I forget to point out every single week, if you are not part of the Tuesday Night Live crew who are checking us out live, or watching us on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, wherever we're reposted, all of these pictures are shared on our Twitter, which is GrimDarkFLGN, right after the show comes, without context. But yeah, if you see two pixelated sci-fi pictures, that's what Danny's referring to. Those are sorry, Tyler. And then definitely being told we have to bleep out thanks for this, please. So moving on.
I was just screaming at us right now.
Really my ear is hurting right now. Who knew that was the breaking point? Finally, Relic celebrated the 10th anniversary of Space Marine, very popular kind of like third-person shooter game with a free upgrade to the game everyone got forever ago with free DLC. It did make me go back and play it. And if there was ever a game, Danny, that was like so close to just being great, that was it.
It's really good.
It was to me, it was like okay, but like man, if there was a sequel, it would be perfect. With that, and with licenses being handed out to Joy Toy, as we've already been over here. What is going to be? What would be your ideal Warhammer 40k video game?
Oh man,
say RTS because I know you will.
I won't say RTS. I don't even like an RTS, to be honest with you. I like first person games. I think it would be fun to have like an Inquisitor style horror first person game. I think that would be really fun, like kind of with some good jump scares and some chaos stuff. I think that would be a really good time.
Oh god, it was bad enough with the Space Hulk game. Like just the Gene Stealer appealing just made me just like throw my computer away. It was the worst. My cowardice aside, actually, finally, the New Orleans Open is coming. Tickets are selling out really fast. It's going to be a huge event with the promise that every host from Signals from the Frontline are going to be in attendance.
Wow.
And available to you to beat. Yeah, that's going to be like our Wednesday night show. So Seth, Shelby, Kicker, all going to be there at the New Orleans Open. Danny, you've beaten Seth a bunch.
Yeah, both in the game and with a hose.
Yeah, Seth, of course, shown here in this picture, recording last week's episode of Signals from the Front Line. What are some tips that you could give prospective opponents of Seth if they are paired at LVO?
All right, so the key is to just really insult him a lot before the game and during the game and after the game. All of those things together really help to kind of bring the experience together, and he'll get tilted. And then once he's tilted, that's it. So just make sure to personally insult him, his mother, his career, all of that stuff, and really just kind of twist the knife, like just twist it.
Well, as Chad points out here, hide your birds and dolphins, which if you have a dolphin at a major event, you have more problems than Seth at that point. I'm sure that's some kind of crime. I would say my top tip for beating Seth through mind games is just do not interact with him at all. Just don't talk.
Just don't talk to him. Yeah.
No, just roll dice. Don't say what you're doing and just make it a miserable 2-hour experience. But we do want to send out a little bit of love. So that's why Danny here and I, Grim After Dark, want to incentivize people to do the best that they can. So that's why we will email anyone who successfully beat Seth at the New Orleans Open this certificate of appreciation, courtesy of Grim After Dark. We are very excited for that. Perfect. Yep. So it's our certificate of appreciation for humbling Seth. So when we verify it's you through BCP, the beat Seth at the New Orleans Open, send us your email address, connect with us on Twitter, GrimdarkFLGN, and we will send that to you personalized with your name. I for sure didn't spend 2 minutes before the show started photoshopping that together. So that is the important thing to take away from there. Absolutely. It's perfect.
No,
Danny.
Totally made that in Word, like not in Photoshop.
Well, when you have expensive programs, it's important to use them incorrectly, as I just do. Because what's the point of paying a monthly subscription for Word if I don't use the monthly subscription for Photoshop? Because that's the awful world we live in now.
Yep.
Danny, we've prattled on enough. We touched Bloody Angels, which I never thought we would do. We went through Joy Toys to video games to didn't even get to Photoshop Reese this week. So that's a big shame too. But why don't you tell us who we're talking to today?
So this week we're not going to have to make fun of Black Templars, but we will get to talk about Drukhari a little bit because we definitely have on the master of the Dark Kin, Skarri. Welcome to the show.
Why, hello, everyone. How are you?
Great.
Doing amazing.
I have popped out, and I hope my release into the show is as joyful as you might expect.
And it's
It is. It's
scheduled,
better
which-
than John having his mustache whiskers in his mouth and complaining about
yeah,
it.
which I
So
super loved. Yeah, I was told I would be counted in, so I could complain about stuff like that. But now I think whenever I'm told, "Hey, we're going to go to our standby screen," I'm just going to just be quiet the whole time.
It
and
was counted by blinks.
it was. There you go.
Holy cow! Counted by blinks. I just need to look for sure. But yeah, Skarri. Like we joked a little bit at the start here. Standby guest for the Frontline Gaming Network. So like this week, your episode with Steve Joel and 40K Game Changers came out. You're a frequent co-guest on Chapter Tactics, and now you're kind of joining us here. You do so much content-wise. What made you kind of make that decision where you're like, I would like to talk about this a lot to a lot of different people?
It was a gradual process that slowly descended into madness. But thank you very much. I am just a person, like every single other person out there, that just happens to have an affinity and love for the hobby, like most of you out there. And I was at a breaking point in my like professional career, and I've been doing kind of like podcasting and hobbying and like blogging and the Patreon for a while, and I decided to just take a nosedive into content creation about 3 years ago now, almost to the month. Yeah.
And how terrifying was that for you to be like, yeah, I'm just going to do this?
It was terrifying. Don't get me terrifying. Don't get me wrong. I did hard-nosed like sales for like 7 years. So it was like pure straight commission sales. So I knew like the ups and downs of like feast and famine. However, nothing kind of beats kind of talking to your significant other and being like, you might be the only earner for a while. I would like to try this for my own sanity and this like my soul, basically. And and then this community is the best gaming community in the world. I'll tell you right now, just everything I've seen. Yes, we have our differences. Yes, we all believe Adeptus Mechanicus is the most balanced codex that has ever existed.
It is. When paired against other
That's
Adeptus
accurate.
Mechanicus armies, it is like a perfect 50-50 win.
100%. But sometimes we have differences, but a lot of we as a community are really warm, and we love kind of like coming together for things. Charity Hammer, for example, where like everybody comes together to just support like children's hospitals, or we have the Nova, and like the charity, like the raffles that we do, and like the community at large around the world is just full of amazing people. And so I don't only do this for the hobby, it's because I love people that do this hobby and that have that same positive influence and like vibe, right? You hang out with them and you become a better person, right? Like by surrounding yourself with better people. And it's just a pleasure to kind of talk to different interesting people and to paint things and to like be artistic and like create awesome narratives on the table, and there's nothing like it.
Skari, that's one thing that I think is really lacking in general, and I would say you're a big proponent of this, is positivity in the game. And I know that's something that like John and I have tried to foster like quite a bit, and it's easy to get turned around the other way because gamers are finicky complainers, right? And so like I really appreciate that about you. How hard do you find it to maintain that positivity?
Well, I was very much conditioned to only look positively within the cult that is sales.
Sure.
where you have to sort of like take no after no after no after no after no after no after no, and then eventually you find like a yes, and then you're like yes, and then you go no, and you're constantly like fed spoonfuls of we called them cheery nose, and you you end up sort of like learning how to regulate your own self-talk, it's one of the things that I find myself doing a lot, and even on the table when it comes to dice, when it comes to situations that you might have in life, just in general. A lot of the times, our own self-talk tends to be like the thing that puts us down the most. I can't do this. This is too hard. I'm not like I'm not capable of this or that. And so I became more conscious of how I spoke to myself and what I vocalized, right? Because I know situations can be crap. I know
Right.
when my luck is terrible. I know when like life is just taking me for a dump, right? But there was a couple of philosophies. Number one, I will vocalize, even if it comes across sometimes. I know, like a lot of people think I might live in like this chronic utopia, if that makes
Sure.
sense. Like
Canada.
Yes, indeed. Come and see the igloos, everyone. The giant mooses covered in maple syrup that we lick for fun.
But not for sustenance.
Yes. But yeah,
massive joy toy.
Yeah,
Yep.
it just comes. Yeah, you just have to blur that one out too. So it comes to a point where it's just normal for me to now talk positively, even though I get into Twitter beef sometimes where people are like, "You're too positive." I'm like, okay, like
Yeah, whatever.
life is life is too short to be grumpy. Okay.
Oh my god!
Dare
no
you
kidding.
not hate things like me?
Yeah, you live and then you're not alive anymore. Like, what is the point in wasting the time that we have here just being like grumpy the whole time, or
Sure.
just complaining about everything instead of looking at the little positivities in life, just looking at all the negative. And don't get me wrong, like this is a whole other topic on, mental health and depression. And like, it's okay to feel like like sometimes we feel like, like there's a big cloud around you. And I suffer from anxiety. I've had like big, like undiagnosed, I'm assuming ADD because, squirrels in my brain. But other than that, like I prefer to look at the positive in situations and then go, how can I learn, or how can I take this situation or this bad spot, right? And then come out the other end as a better person, right? And that's like how I tend to look at situations.
Well, first off, you say no when we ask you onto the show is how you get yourself out the situation. But,
oh no, what have I done?
That's yeah, pretty much it. You just said you try and be positive. You've created a lot of content over the years and be doing this sort of full time for 3 years. What do you think is the piece of content you've created? Because I know for like me and Danny, like I have answers in my head to this as well. But the piece of content you've created in kind of your streaming creation career that you are most proud of, or kind of stands above everything else?
I'm really happy about co-production that I've been doing with Tanya, the War Mistress Gates, called Just Put Paint on It on Twitch. And it was a live stream that we started doing on Twitch every single day throughout the course of like lockdowns during the like the main brunt of the pandemic. And we did a first season with something like 140 episodes. And that was every day, Monday through Friday. And we would sit down 11 o'clock in the morning Eastern and have a guest on and paint for an hour and a half, like Monday for 130 episodes or whatever. It was like 6 months of just guests and people and chatting. And I'm really proud of that because it was a great way to like just bring people together and meet people from that have passions that we do, but different. Some people just paint. Some people just play games. Some people like write stories or produce like narrative content, like audiobooks and things like that.
Sure.
And it was cool to have like legends on, like Andy Chambers and, Duncan, Two Coats Duncan, and like all these people who
Nope. Good. Yep, our producer's letting us know that's all of the legends you had on there.
There you go. No more legends.
Zero, yeah. Zero other legends.
So that I would say if there's one piece of content that I'm most proud of, it would be that we are starting our second season next Thursday, and it'll now be 2 weekdays in a week, because now we're back to like mostly normal life at the moment. But I'm really excited to move that forward as well. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah. Danny, I'm
Nice.
actually going to pull away from Skari a little bit here and ask you. You've been creating content for like 3 years now. Hopefully you remember some of it. Who knows? Well, what is the one piece that stands out to you most of all?
Okay. Yeah, actually, I do have one specific thing that I think we did the best job on.
Just remembering, of course, here, per the FLGN style guide, we're not allowed to mention mob rules, another podcast, or the mob rules YouTube channel, Discord, or Patreon.
All right. Hold on a second. I've got to reevaluate this.
No, you can totally mention that. That was just a bit to mention all of those things slightly.
Okay, so legitimately, I think it was the Orc Codex review that we did in 8th edition was really, really good. I really like the way that turned out. Like, we took a ton of notes and really did a good job of making sure that we covered like everything. I think we did an awesome job with that.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
cool. That's all I had. So Skari, you are.
Cool.
I just wanted to know.
Thanks.
I just
very
wanted
orky.
to know what it was.
That was good.
Yeah,
very,
good.
Just
And
scrapped
it's
together
kind of
like a mech. Just kind of like just call together. Like,
it's
with a
crazy
wrench.
what happens when you get a book like 2 days in advance instead of on the day. Skari, you are known mainly sort of for playing Drukhari. So tell me, what drew you to them sort of as a faction?
Black Templars did, by the way.
Oh my god! No.
So don't worry, John. I have a great follow-up question for this.
Okay,
no, please
good.
continue, Skarri.
Okay. It was a 3rd edition box set. But to be honest, Drukhari, or Dark Eldar, as we normal people call them, I started playing with them because they were crap, and nobody played them, and everyone said that it was impossible to win with them, and I felt like proving people wrong, so I started a Drukhari army, and that was the main reason. Yeah, and then eventually it turned into, I really like the style of the army, and it just vibes with me really. Like, I just love how they play on the table, but I still have lots of Black Templars. And I'm excited for the Codex supplement.
Well, that's interesting that you said that. You have a very optimistic take about your Dark Eldar, as you do with most things. So how do you balance this reckless optimism with being a Black Templars player?
With zeal and blind faith.
I see. Okay.
I used to kneel in front of my opponent, do the Aquila cross, look at them square in the face, and recite my vow before I played them.
And then they unzip, as all Black Templar opponents do.
Wow.
No, never so much.
Hey, you don't put the tabard on and tell, buddy.
That's fair. I can't argue with that. It's why for a reason. So you said like the play style of Drukhari like really sort of jive with you, and you kind of got behind it. You started in 3rd edition. I picked that up from kind of like your Drukhari versus Terrible Space Marine box set. How has that play style sort of evolved for you throughout those editions?
In terms of, before, like, the raider spam thing has been the thing since 3rd edition. Like, having a bunch of raiders and dudes inside, and it used to be measured by how many lance weapons you could physically put per 100 points. And like, that was like how you built lists back then, was I had 2 lances in every 100 points, or I had a lance and a half in every 100 points. And so, that's usually the measure of success, was how much dark light did you bring, plus how much did your Archon kill before ODing with like the drug injector on his jet bike, which used to be really fun. you know, and so it wasn't really an army that had a lot of variety. It was, you know, 3 Ravagers and then like 4 Raiders filled with stuff, you know, or whatever it
Yep.
was back then, and like an Archon on a jet bike. And that was, you know, your army. And then when the new release came out, it was more about like they had beasts and they had venoms and they had all this other stuff and Hellions, and like it kind of had new life in it. And since then, I've been playing a very eclectic, like one of everything as much as I can style list. And then we went through like 5th, and then 6th, and then 7th, and then 8th, and now I guess we're good. So like, and it's very hard to make army lists right now because I want to do everything, but it's like sort of depressing because I want it to be challenging and I want it to be terrible so I can like try be better, essentially.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask this here, Danny, here real quick. So you say you make strange lists, weird things. What is the weirdest thing you tried to make work for Dark Eldar, but you weren't able to?
For me or for
you?
For me?
For you personally, yeah.
What was the weirdest thing that I tried to do that
or the weirdest list that you made that you're just like, why did I ever think this was going to work?
That then did work or that just didn't work?
Totally up to you. Like, if I'm going to ask these random bad questions, I need someone professional to finish them off for me.
Just like all those massage parlors, right, John?
It is one of those, you know, you'll be quite relaxed after this answer over here. There you go. So I would want to say that one of the list concepts that was supposed to be really good but never really worked for me was the Dark Techno Monster liquefier guns. Like, I tried to make that work, and the playstyle was just terrible. I hated it so much. It just never worked for me in like early 9th. And I put it in, and my team was like, you have to do it. It's the thing to do. I'm like, it doesn't vibe with me at all. This is terrible. And so I ended up going with like, you know, Reaver jet bikes and Void Raven bombers or something. Yeah.
This list has 0 chill, and I'm not about it.
Yeah. Give me something that makes me use my brain. Not just like get out and shoot flamers and stuff and pick up models. Like, come on.
So what about it didn't vibe? Because that was a really popular net list when it first kind of released.
I think the fact that it was really popular.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it just, I like having technical pieces, or like I love building lists that have a lot of layers of technicality to it, where you can use the random stratagems that no one uses ever because there's one game that you'll use that stratagem sometime, or a unit that people think is subpar but you find a really good use for it, like I did with Mandrakes in 7th edition before they were good, right? And it was just mindless. Like, you just kind of hopped out of a raider and shot people with super flamers, and then they died. Like, there was no subtlety to it. There was no finesse involved. It was just make sure they killed the right amount of models, and it was very boring.
Yeah.
I think, Danny, and this is sort of for both of you here, do you think both of you think a little of that talks to the current kind of game state of 40K, where we're coming out of like LGT, where the game was again over after one round, and then kind of a lot of the other matchups that we're seeing coming in are decided very definitively and quickly. Is this just kind of like where we're headed with the edition? And we'll start with Skarri, but Danny, I want to know your answer here too.
I'm okay with the LGT game finished in like 20 minutes. Yep, that's good. You know, I agree with the outcome there. Now, what I will say though is both players were in that same situation. Like, each player had a list that would have done about the same. I think you just need more varied terrain on the table, and tournament terrain has become very like standardized. You've got like your L's and your thises and your that's, and that leads to very stylized gameplay where you can take advantage of the game state, essentially. Like, if you play on like a crazy narrative table and you took a list like that, you'd do terrible, because the table itself would like stop you from winning in some situations. Like, you can't place your planes. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't be able to fit these things, that sort of thing, or you just wouldn't have line of sight. So I think terrain is a big impact on it. I still think that Ninth is the best edition that GW has done, in terms of like building the hobby, ease of gameplay, and I just want, like, they need to just lower a few things and raise a few things up, and then the game will be in a perfect state. It's just a matter of getting it done and getting to that point. But I like where their head's at with it. Like it's really fun to play, and the whole I go first, I win at a GT. I think that is just like an inherent thing of like the format of like terrain with like the missions, or like the incentive that you have to just like crush your opponent instead of like making it like a hobby tournament, if that makes sense. Because if you're incentivized to go and just win, you're going to find people who optimize things to just win. Like that's the whole point. And they're not going to be apologetic about it. Like it's not like this is a 600 person like super major where at the end of 5 rounds, there are 16 undefeated players and only 4 get to go to the bracket. So not only do you have to win, you have to crush people, right? So there's no, like, it's very, like, there's no shades of gray here, right?
Right.
At all.
Then, Danny, what's your kind of take on current game stakes? I know, like I said, it's come up a lot over the past week.
Well, so I think LGT is probably not a great tournament to have a lot of takeaways on. It's really large. And I think that there's like some validity in that. I feel like the terrain setup was way too light. And like Skarri kind of alluded to, like you're going to end up with these blowout kind of games pretty quickly, like with first turn, like just nuking somebody, alpha striking someone like right off the table. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely, like I think both of you alluded to there, the terrain is definitely a factor to having these games be either blowout or super quick. Skarri, you did some shoutcasting for the Lone Star Open, right?
Not for the
Lone Star was it Atlantic City?
It was
Lone
okay. So yeah,
Star
I've
you
done
did the
some for that, and I
for.
recently did some for like the Flying Monkey GT, I believe.
Yeah.
As well.
So you've done some shoutcasting for games where the poop or the pot, depending if you're Florida based or here, with the player optimized terrain or the player organized only place terrain. How far does that go, do you think, to correcting a lot of these issues we're seeing with AdMech and Drukhari and other armies right now?
From what I've seen, it's overwhelmingly positive. Players being able to have a lot more control over using terrain to give themselves an advantage. It really helps take the wind out of some of these crazy alpha strikes. And if you have an army that's more geared to getting into the middle of the board or like moving up a flank, you can sort of set up staging points for your army where you can kind of develop a game plan based on the terrain that you have available. We have a few tournaments locally here in near Toronto that is starting to use player place terrain, and we also have a GT coming up that is going to be implementing this with standardized terrain. And in practice, players love it because it gives them agency over controlling, like something that gives them more control, so it makes them feel better just about the game in general, especially if you go second, right? Being able to kind of have a contingency plan to go, I can go second and not just get blown off the table because I have control over where these pieces of terrain are going on the board, instead of showing up to your table and going, oh my goodness, I hope I don't get that side, right? Or, what I mean? Or having to put a lot of work on the TO side, switching the terrain layouts from hammer and anvil deployment to Dawn of War deployment to diagonal deployment, where like the terrain pieces should really be angled in different ways to make sure you have different like avenues that can be blocked based on like where your deployments are. Because if you just have it set in one go, like it's very hard to make sure that you get coverage from, the 3 or 4 different terrain, like deployment styles. So I think I like it. I think it's really good for the hobby in general. It also, and with refinement, yes, is it going to be gamed? Yes, of course. come on, like we're like you're playing a competitive game where people are bringing 5 flyers because that's super efficient. It's going to happen. You're going to fight. So there's ways that you tweak it and things like that, and eventually it'll become a more refined process.
Fingers crossed, right, Danny? It's going to be better in there.
It'll be interesting to see. I really like the way that they've done player place terrain in that it makes fortifications a potentially valid choice again. I'm glad to see that kind of stuff because I think more options like that give people more agency in building their list.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of excited to see how some of that turns out if that becomes pretty good. But yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the player optimized terrain as well. Is that what? Wait, I forgot which is poop and which is pot. I totally
poop and pot are both different ways of saying player place
the
terrain.
Same thing. Okay,
because
I'm talking
PPT is already taken by Microsoft as an acronym for a PowerPoint document, so you can't do that. So the mature thing to do is to call it poop. So
perfect.
Yeah, and how it is. And then guys, so yeah, go down.
Oh, I was going to say, like, I'm excited to see kind of some of the results of some of the Games Workshop open tournaments and their terrain layout. I think that those are a lot better than like what we saw at LGT this last weekend, and that creates a totally different style of army that I think is more interesting to watch and play.
Also, it shows that GW or Mike Brand took out shares or bought stock in plexiglass companies. Because you would have to imagine, since those came out, just through the roof sales of 12 by 12, is it 12 by 12, 5 by 7, 4 by 6?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I'm sure Val put in the show notes here an Amazon affiliate link that we can put in there to send you to that plexiglass. But yeah, guys, the GW terrain system is another way that came out here as another way of balancing the game, and we saw some differences the GW Open event. Of course, we have another one upcoming here, but still sort of some of the same top armies that we were seeing before. So how much of a difference does it really make to go from this player place terrain to this GW style terrain?
GW style terrain tends to be like denser in a lot of ways and not in some other ways. It really encourages movement around the edges of the table with like your faster units, but then to get stuck in, it encourages you to sort of like have like infantry or units that can get in and kind of clear people out of like sections of the table. So you do see terrain that just or armies like Blood Angels that did okay, at that event because they could hide until they could like get into position to then strike out of their like hiding spots and not just get blown off the table by a bunch of shooting, right? Sure. It also increases the value of like out of line of sight shooting and things like that, and surprisingly wasn't as compact or dense as I thought it would be. Being that a couple of knight armies did so well, where I honestly thought that the large base sizes of the knights would be a detriment to them moving through the pieces of terrain. However, the way that they did it with the plexiglass or like that area terrain, so outlining where the terrain began and started was really useful. But then the actual elements of the terrain tended to be inside of those areas, which then allowed like movement for larger models in and around those pieces to increase like gameplay, right? And so is it a perfect system? No. But do I like it? Yes. Why? Because it's the company that makes the game saying, hey, this is a standard like of tournament gameplay, that then at least they have a framework. It doesn't have to be perfect, but they're giving you something to work with. And then they can improve on that, or they can change it or adapt it. But it says, look, when we say match play and we're doing these missions and we're testing these things or stuff like that, like this is what we are expecting a table to look like, right? So you can kind of it helps, in that like get into their mindset and then see kind of where they're coming from. And I think it's super useful for the community as a whole.
Yeah. I agree with most everything that you just said. I think that those are all great points and great reasons why the GW terrain is great. I think the Frontline, the player place terrain is also a really good system, as we outlined earlier too. I like the GW stuff just because I think it encourages more close range, like punchy firefights, which I think are really fun and cool. Like it just allows some of the armies to kind of compete in arenas that they normally wouldn't, even if the GW terrain does break some of the basic rules of the game. Like in that,
Wait,
like,
what?
yeah,
Yep.
no, I mean, like it does. You can't can't normally place objectives on terrain pieces, right?
Yeah, or on the area of terrain. You can't put that,
Yep.
but it's literally smack dab in the middle of this big area terrain piece. Yeah.
Which is fine if that's the exception that they want to make. And I don't think that's a bad one.
No.
It's part of the rare rule of don't worry about it.
That's one of my favorites, John.
Yeah.
I've heard of this rule.
Yeah.
Goes back a few editions.
It sure does. Yeah, but I think we're starting to definitely see a really great improvement to the game state kind of through this different terrain system. And what's nice is we're seeing like some form of it kind of filter down to the local RTT and local levels as well.
Yeah.
Because I know for like a good 6 to 9 months, we had people like they didn't know how much terrain was supposed to be on a table or what an appropriate amount was. And they had a little trouble kind of translating what GW meant in the rule book, but kind of seeing these tables laid out and then kind of seeing how it's played has really sort of changed up the game state. Because I know I know you guys have been as well, stuck on tables where you're like, well, it's a hammer and anvil deployment, so I guess I'll just die. And that's just never fun.
It's true.
Yeah, it is never fun. And you are 100% right. On the note of them breaking their own rules, by the way, I love it because, they're not like flush with each other. A lot of these pieces of terrain, which is like, there's big gaps, but they were like, you can't see through the gaps. You're like, that's not how your rules work.
There's like really intricate Gothic curtain rods that are up between the gaps.
Yeah.
Just slam shut in between days.
Those
Total
armor class curtains are very powerful. Like, don't discount them.
Terrible
Exactly.
for daylight, though. I just have to say, let's all the stuff through.
Well, in the grim dark.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh.
There we go. You don't need no curtains in the grim dark. Things that we learn, and then I'm going to add into the style guide.
There you go. Perfect.
You don't need curtains
footnote.
in the 41st
Footnote.
millennium.
Right there next to the don't worry about it.
Yeah. So footnote 1, don't worry about it. Section 2, you don't need curtains. So you've seen like a ton of like rise in this community. So like over the past 2 years and sort of like pandemic times where we've seen, and like we've been making jokes as well about how everyone has a podcast or everyone's content creating and like kind of this explosion of community creation going on. What's your kind of takeaway from like kind of the past 2 years of the 40K community growth to be sort of more global as everyone is like being pulled in?
Well, it's like a two-parter. But number one, like in the first side, the explosion of content creation, I feel has been really interesting to see from someone who like stalked YouTube and watched videos when there were very few sort of like channels to watch, right? All the way to now when you have like other YouTubers getting into 40K. Right, because there's like a market there, right, and they're necessarily doing, like they're not necessarily doing the traditional hobby content, which is this is my army and I'm doing a battle report, right, which is like a traditional, like other than typing it is more traditional, but like the new age battle reports, which was filming a battle report. You do like people going from painting and doing like showing off like painting techniques and styles and all that stuff to people who buy a Relic Thunderhawk and paint it up and then sell it for $100 million, or things like that, right? Sorry, 1 box of Intercessors worth.
Yeah, $1 million Australian is important to point out.
Absolutely,
here. Yeah, $35 US.
Still more than Canadian. Okay. So, and so that's been really cool. As a content creator myself, I, definitely seen like, with the growth of the community, you see a lot of people from all over the world, and you see how different people play the game, or there's different rules interactions, or there's different interpretations of specific like game mechanics, or what the sort of like ideal game state is. Some countries prefer team events than single events, and we're starting to see a lot more sort of like intermingling of all these different, which has led to some like clashes. You've got the narrative people and the competitive people and the fluff people and the whack players, and and then there's the cesspool that is Reddit, right? And then you put it all together, and you can really find anything that you want based on the hobby that we love, right? Now, as a content creator myself, it's been cool to be sort of like a faction specialist, because in a world where there are so many podcasts, right, it's nice to kind of be one of few that like specifically deal in one thing, if that makes sense. And so it kind of helps you like stand out in the crowd, and that has been like a blessing in disguise. It's been where if you need a specific Drukhari question, you can literally message me on Facebook. You know what I mean? Or like, and I will answer.
Everyone heard that, by the way. If you have any Drukhari questions,
if you are at an RTT in Melbourne on a Saturday afternoon,
that's right.
Please just message Skarri to ask for a Hellion stat line, because that'll be like 3 p.m. Thursday.
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons I keep my phone on no notifications. I will check it when I have time. Thank you. But yeah, other than that, it's great to see the explosion. Of course, during the pandemic, having the hobby as an outlet for folks to sort of like interact with other people, like especially during lockdowns and things like that, it was like such a healthy way of like chatting with people and having like pain hangouts, or going onto a Discord channel, or there's a whole bunch of stuff with like meeting, greeting, and talking with people online while like playing games. And there was like people doing like battle reports through Twitter or whatever, which was like 40-second Twitter bat reps or something.
That's
like it was
crazy.
Right.
Well,
they were
you gotta,
doing like,
you got to send me a link for that, because that's about my attention span for battle reports.
well, it was like this. They had this way of like doing entire bat reps through like interaction with people on Twitter, right? Where they like get the people to like choose what would happen on the table by tweeting about it. Like there's like so many creative ways of like experiencing our hobby, came out of like not being able to see people, you know what I mean? And so, and now that creativity is going to sort of like further the hobby even greater. Like we're having a talk show about, look, I'm sitting on a pseudo like couch.
You don't sit on the couch. That is also in the style guide that you don't sit on the couch.
I'm not sitting on the couch. I'm on a television.
We can't tell you why, because Tyler would have to edit too much.
Sitting on top of the couch. You'd have to blur it out, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
There's a lot of joy toys in the cushions there.
A lot of early mock-ups,
makes
joy toys.
Sense. A
lot of heavy support choices.
Man, you don't want to see those.
My publicist did not warn me about this. No,
Dude, big guns never tire.
They never tire.
Oh God, we're getting so much more mileage out of joy toys.
Closer, I want to hit it with my sword, right?
Exactly. I want to hit it with my joy toy.
Anyway,
moving on. Back out.
Yeah, John,
we're still on that joke, aren't we? Where can they see these pictures after the show?
Yeah, so at Grimdark FLGN. Do not go to at Grimdark. Val let me know.
If you want to see some great dildo pictures, guys, make sure to check out our Twitter feed.
Also, our Amazon link and wish list.
We're just waiting for the final setup for the FLGN OnlyFans now that they've gone back on that.
Oh,
so anyway, Skarri.
Wait. Producer says answer yes. Yes, you can buy that on Amazon.
Oh man. So Skarri, moving back to 40K now that we've sent our producer down a sex toy Amazon rabbit hole. You've again, you played Drukhari,
Just
you've
just
played Black
another
Templar.
day in the Dark City. Just saying.
You are
Yeah.
known, as this conversation has gone here, to be a Drukhari player. Have you ever tried any other faction to be like, hey, I have to just try something different, and then
Oh
you
yeah,
think, well,
100%. It's the
damn
only
it, I
way
don't
you
like
avoid.
this.
It's only the way you avoid burnout. Sorry, I totally interrupted you while you were asking a
No,
question.
no, you're all good. No.
But the only way that I avoid burnout is by doing completely different stuff. So I played Drukhari, right? I played Dark Eldar. That's my main force. I recently had Patreon donate an entire 4,000 point Eldar army to the channel. So
Wow.
I did
damn.
have painted by Den of Imagination.
Oh,
Apotheosis, you're boss. Anyways, it's really nice. So that kind of whets the palate, right? Of something different. I also have my dad's army of old school Metal to Larn, which I've painted and collect, and I love playing them. They're like one of my favorite armies to play because they're humans and they die really fast, and they try so hard. And then I have the Black Templars, and then I play Age of Sigmar. So I play lots of different styles of armies to just keep it fresh and make sure that I'm not stagnating in terms of not just the play style, but I usually find that by playing different armies and going out of my comfort zone, I tend to take a lot of really cool concepts or combos or things that I kind of see work and then apply it to more competitive style builds. It's one of the reasons I always recommend people play, especially competitive players. It's not something that very many do. Play some weird narrative missions. Play some weird narrative missions, weird narrative games. Roll on the chart instead of picking, things like that, just to kind of force you out of your comfort zone and getting you better at thinking on your feet. Because when it comes to that GT top table and you don't go first and you get slaughtered on that first turn, you need to have really creative ways to get out of situations like that. But it's possible if you've sort of built your mentality around it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah. And then kind of off of that as well, with your kind of great advice about how to grow better as a player, you're also a coach for Art of War, right?
Yep. Yeah, I do. I'm a member of the team. We just sent a team to the Las Vegas team tournament, and took the #1 spot. So that's really exciting. Sadly, I was unable to be there, but I was there in spirit.
I like that you can still claim credit from afar, though. That's
absolutely.
Very on brand.
You know who they call that Dark Eldar advice? This guy. Love you, Brad.
So how did that sort of come about? Kind of that collaboration and kind of even just wanting to be a coach in Warhammer.
Well, Nick started the Brown Magic in early 2018, fresh off of his.
Touch some wood. Whenever we mention Nick Nanavalli on the show breaks. So we're just gonna double check something. Okay, we're good. All right, go.
I'm still a floating head on top of the couch. Still not allowed to touch the couch?
Nope, still not.
Yes, the show broke. Okay, there you
go. Dang it.
No curtain call. And now you played me off, didn't you? You totally played me off, didn't you? So this is not the Oscars or the Emmys. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thanks. Producer says, just get on with it. What have the Romans ever done for us? So it was about 2018, and I really got into competitive 40K in 2018. Was when I went. I was first drafted into or first selected for the Canadian ETC national team, and I got to interview Nick at the tournament. And that was really cool, and I kind of got to know him, and he'd been doing the coaching thing, and I was like, I could probably do that. So I decided to put a coaching tier on my Patreon, and people kind of gravitated to it. And it was very like I only had 2 or 3, and it was like an exclusive thing for time purposes. And then when I like dove into like full time, I did that, and then kind of got together with them, and like once they kind of moved on from there, and just started working with them. It's been really fun, but other than that, I just like helping people. So yeah, and you smile on your face. That's how it works. Just like
Sorry, had to add something to the style guide here after reading.
Yeah. What did you say? The show breaks.
No. That's assumed. It's like we don't recognize AOS, but we recognize WAP. And then, guys, if you like in jokes, you have absolutely zero knowledge of. Boy, is this style guide right for you?
So
there'll be a picture of it on the Twitter feed after.
No, not the style guide.
Oh,
that's private for me.
Letting them in that way.
So, like, here's the weird thing. We've been doing this a couple months now. Like, I'm legitimately writing in this book every time I say some things in the style guide. But this is just for me. This is just to pop me, make producer Val laugh in my ear. It'll never see the light of day.
So to continue on that train of thought, Skari, so you started your own coaching service, and then you moved to Art of War. Is that what happened, or they recruited you for that?
Yeah, so it was the Art of War was going to start. I believe it's going on year 3 now of our or year 2. So early on, they just kind of like I was like, they were like, "Do you want to do some articles, some videos for us?" Like I started more as like a guest, really, and kind of moved on to more like permanent sort of like coaching position. But it's been really, really fun, and it's really cool, like seeing like people work hard and kind of like get to their goals. And sometimes it's like a very quick conversation where you're like, have you thought of this or have you thought of that? And all of a sudden like light bulbs go off on people's heads, because not everyone that has like a full-time job, right, that wants to go to a tournament or do in their league and like not get embarrassed, like completely crushed or whatever it is. Like people have different levels of like what I want to achieve in the hobby, right? It's like having a personal trainer, and it's really cool that you can like develop a plan with someone about anything. Like I have a personal trainer for like workouts, right? Like that kind of like their job is more to motivate me to do my workout instead of like, specifically like I want to get toned, I want to Stephen Box this, right? So
Chris Evans in Civil War this.
Yeah. So, I want to like, it's more like just make sure that I keep my schedule or that I keep my, my routine going. Like, and that's their job more than anything, while motivating me while kind of we do workouts together. So, it really can be anything that you want it to be. And you should probably put this in the style guide, but
I have so much. Okay, go. Yeah. I have so much writing to do today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the key to success is perfect practice makes perfect, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Well, okay, slow down. That was like really fast.
That was 2 things.
So
all I got was key to success. The key to success is perfect ask help.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. It's official.
Ask help, key to success. Excellent.
It's a mouthful, and you guys got that for free. Like, go didn't even charge.
Oh my goodness! Didn't even have.
He's going to be in so much trouble
for that one. Woo!
It was a mouthful, much like the new line of Joy Toys coming out for. Oh man, fantastic!
You won't believe your eyes when you see the Thunderhammer coming Q2 2022. Val just shuts the show down. He's like, I'm done.
That's it.
Oh man, I don't. Can we even top that? Do we even want to, Danny? Like at this point here?
No, I'm spent.
I'm spent. Oh, let's wrap up. Skari, hey, thank you so much for coming on. Why don't you take a couple minutes to talk about what you're doing, where people can find you when you're not permanently guesting across the Frontline Gaming Network?
Yep. Thank you so much for having me on. Also, everybody out there, you are awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in and supporting all 2 of you that listen to the show. Thank you for supporting. Really appreciate it.
Danny, our listeners doubled.
Yes.
Yeah, not just one. Wait. If I go into the little clicky thing, oh no, that's just Val. Okay. But thanks so much. If you like to see more of what I do, you can always head on over to mainly YouTube, Shoutcast on YouTube, where I do battle reports every single week. I've been doing a lot of work with mini wargaming lately, so if you like watching other battle reports, I've been doing AOS and stuff with them a lot. And of course, Art of War. And the main thing would be Patreon. If you'd like to support what I do, head on over to Patreon and help me create more content, and be on more podcasts, and maybe even start my podcast again, because we have enough podcasts.
That's fair. Yeah, for all 14 of us here. That is truly perfect. Guys, Tuesday Night Crew, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us and kind of being a part of the conversation. I appreciate you every single week you guys come on in. Wednesday through Saturday Crew, wherever this is posted, go if you want to see the visual jokes. They're not funny. But they will be on the Grimdark FLGN Twitter at Grimdark FLGN. We will be back, Danny and I, next week with Play on Tabletop's JT McDowell. He's going to be joining us to talk about Play on Tabletop.
It's
his journey. It's a Drukhari doubleheader, which means a different thing than Gomera. Oh, look at that! That wasn't even planned.
Best t-shirt company ever.
Yeah.
Best t-shirt company ever. And maybe even I will get the footage together from Charity Hammer of JT's amazing army description video that we put together in Colin Sherman's backyard, where he's in a singlet. And that's about all I really want to say about that. It's quite fantastic. But for everyone involved in the show, from producer Val to editor Tyler to Danny to Skarri for coming on, I've been John. Thank you so much for watching, listening, or however you consume us. We will see you next Tuesday.